The alarm rang through the Galactic Concordance headquarters like a scream in the void. Diplomatic envoy Talrix felt his antenna vibrate with the sound. His wings twitched nervously as he rushed toward the emergency council chamber. Something was very wrong. The massive doors opened to reveal chaos. Hundreds of alien species filled the room, all talking at once. Their voices created a symphony of panic. Talrix had never seen the council like this. In his 200 years of service, the Concordance had always been peaceful and calm. Silence. The voice of High Chancellor Vekros boomed across the chamber. The old reptilian leader stood on the central platform, his scales pale with fear. Everyone stopped talking. Talrix found his seat and waited. "We have received a distress signal from Verath 7, Vekros announced. His voice shook slightly. "The Kreshtar swarm has arrived in the system." The room erupted again. Talrix felt his blood turn cold. The Kreshtar. Everyone knew the stories. They were a hive-mind species that consumed everything in their path. They ate entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty rocks behind. 3 star systems had already fallen to them in the past year. "How many people are on Verath 7? Someone asked. 12,000 souls, Vekros replied. "Mostly miners and their families. They are not soldiers. They have no weapons." Talrix watched as the council members looked at each other with helpless expressions. The Concordance military was not built for war. Their ships carried light weapons meant for pirates and smugglers. Their soldiers trained for peacekeeping, not combat. Against the Kreshtar swarm, they would be like insects against a storm. "We must send our fleet," a counselor insisted. "Our fleet will be destroyed," another replied. "The Kreshtar have millions of bioships. We have hundreds of patrol vessels, then what do we do? Let 12,000 people die." The argument continued for hours. Talrix listened to every suggestion. Evacuate the colony. Negotiate with the Kreshtar. Ask other species for help. Nothing would work. The Kreshtar did not negotiate. Evacuation would take too long. No other species had a military strong enough to help. As the sun set outside the windows, Talrix stood up. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "There is one option we have not discussed." "Speak, Envoy Talrix," Vekros said. Talrix took a deep breath. "We could contact the humans." The silence that followed was absolute. Then the chamber exploded with shouting. Some counselors stood up in anger. Others laughed nervously. "The humans, the Deathworlders, the species that terrified the entire galaxy." "Absolutely not," a counselor shouted. "Do you know what you are suggesting?" Talrix did know. Everyone knew about Earth. It was a Class 12 death world, a planet so dangerous that evolution had created the most terrifying predators in the galaxy. And somehow humans had not just survived there. They had conquered it. The Concordance had met humans 50 years ago. The first contact had been peaceful, but then the Concordance learned about Earth's history. Thousands of years of constant warfare. Weapons that could destroy continents. A species that had nearly made itself extinct multiple times and kept coming back stronger. The Concordance had been horrified. They had asked humans to stay in their own space. The humans had agreed, seeing the fear in alien eyes. For 50 years, Earth had remained isolated by mutual agreement. A quarantine to keep the Deathworlders away from civilized space. "They are too dangerous," someone said. "What if they decide to attack us after helping? They could use this as an opportunity to invade," another added. Talrix spread his wings. "They could. Or 12,000 people could die while we debate. The Kreshtar will reach Verath 7 in 4 days. We have no other choice." High Chancellor Vekros was silent for a long time. His ancient eyes moved across the council chamber, seeing the fear and uncertainty. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Envoy Talrix is correct. We have no other option." Vekros pressed a button on his podium. "Prepare a message to Earth. Invoke the emergency aid protocols." The room buzzed with worried conversation as technicians prepared the communication array. Talrix moved to the transmission station. His hands shook as he recorded the message. "This is Diplomatic Envoy Talrix of the Galactic Concordance to United Earth Defense Command. We invoke emergency aid protocols. The Kreshtar swarm threatens Verath 7 colony. 12,000 lives at risk. Please respond." The message was sent across the void at faster than light speed. Now they could only wait. 2 hours passed. The council had not left the chamber. Everyone waited in tense silence. Then the communication panel lit up. The response had arrived. Talrix opened the message. It was audio only and the voice was female, calm and absolutely certain. United Earth Defense Command to Galactic Concordance. Message received. We are aware of the Kreshitar threat. Fleet is already en route to Vareth 7. Estimated arrival 72 hours. Advise all Concordance forces. Do not engage the enemy. Your priority is civilian survival until we arrive. Humanity will handle the rest. The message ended. The council chamber was completely silent. Talrix felt a shiver run through his body. The humans had not hesitated. They had not asked questions. They had not demanded payment. They simply said they were coming. What have we done? Someone whispered. High Chancellor Vecro stood tall despite his fear. We have called the Deathworlders to war. Now we pray that we made the right choice. Talrix looked at the star map showing Vareth 7's location. The Kreshitar swarm was coming from the north. The human fleet was coming from the south. In 3 days, the galaxy would see what happened when an unstoppable force met an unmovable object. He just hoped the Concordance survived witnessing it. 3 days felt like 3 years to Talrix. He stood on the bridge of the Concordance flagship, the peaceful dawn, watching the sensors with growing dread. The Kreshitar swarm was close now. Millions of bioships moved through space like a living cloud of death. They will arrive in 6 hours, the sensor officer reported. The young queller's voice trembled with fear. Talrix looked at the Vareth 7 colony on the view screen. The small mining settlement sat on a gray moon, completely defenseless. Evacuation shuttles had been running non-stop, but they had only moved 3,000 people. 9,000 remained, huddled in underground shelters waiting for either salvation or death. Any sign of the human fleet? Talrix asked. Nothing yet, sir. Talrix felt his heart sink. Perhaps the humans were not coming. Perhaps they had reconsidered. Perhaps this had all been a terrible mistake. Then the sensor screamed. Multiple contacts. Faster than light signatures detected, the officer shouted. They're coming in hot. Space itself seemed to tear open. Blue-white portals of light appeared, and through them came the human fleet. Talrix stared at the view screen in absolute shock. The ships were massive, dark metal monsters covered in weapons. The Concordance vessels looked like children's toys next to them. The lead ship was the largest, a dreadnought that was 3 times the size of the Peaceful Dawn. Its hull was covered in railguns, missile ports, and energy weapons that Talrix could not even identify. By the stars, someone whispered behind him. A communication request came through. Talrix accepted it with shaking hands. The view screen changed to show the interior of the human ship. A woman appeared wearing a dark military uniform. She had short black hair, brown skin, and eyes that looked like they had seen too many battles. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UEDC Dreadnought Indomitable, she said. Her voice was the same calm voice from the message. We have arrived to assist. Please transmit all tactical data on the Kreshitar force. Talrix bowed his head. Captain Vasquez, I am Envoy Talrix. Thank you for coming. The Kreshitar will arrive in 6 hours. Our sensors show millions of bioships. Captain Vasquez nodded as if this was normal news. Understood. We fought the Kreshitar before. They rely on overwhelming numbers. Standard hive mind tactics. She turned to someone off screen. Tactical, start analyzing their approach vectors. Talrix felt confused. You have fought them before? Twice. They tried to enter Sol space last year. We sent them running. Vasquez looked back at Talrix. Envoy, I need you to pull all Concordant ships back to the colony. Form a defensive sphere around the civilian shelters. Your job is to protect the people, not fight. But we have weapons. We can help. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. With respect, Envoy, your ships are not built for this kind of fight. You will only get in our way. Let us do what we do best. The transmission ended. Talrix felt embarrassed and relieved at the same time. He gave the orders to pull back the Concordance fleet. Within an hour, all their ships formed a protective ring around Vareth 7. The human fleet did something unexpected. Instead of forming a defensive line, they spread out. Each ship took a position in empty space, creating a massive sphere around the area. They were not defending. They were setting a trap. 5 hours passed. The Kreshitar swarm appeared at the edge of the system. Talrix watched the sensors with horror. The estimates were wrong. There were not millions of bioships. There were tens of millions. The swarm looked like a dark stain spreading across space. They are launching attack waves, the sensor officer reported. First wave consists of 5 million bioships. Talrix expected the humans to fall back. Any sane species would retreat from such numbers. Instead, Captain Vasquez's voice came over the open channel. All ships weapons free. Execute pattern Omega-7. Show them why you don't mess with Earth. What happened next would be burned into Talrix's memory forever. The human ships opened fire, but it was not random shooting. It was coordinated, precise, and absolutely devastating. Railgun slugs moving at incredible speeds punched through thousands of bioships at once. Missiles with nuclear warheads created spheres of destruction that vaporized everything nearby. Energy weapons carved lines of death through the swarm. But that was not the impressive part. The impressive part was the tactics. The humans had calculated everything. Every shot was planned. They knew exactly where the Kreshtar would be before they got there. They used the bioship's own momentum against them. They created kill zones that the swarm flew into like moths into fire. How are they doing this? Someone asked in amazement. Talrix watched Captain Vasquez on another screen. She stood calmly on her bridge, calling out orders. Her crew moved with perfect efficiency. They were not afraid. They were not panicking. They were hunting. The first wave of 5 million bioships was destroyed in 20 minutes. The Kreshtar sent another wave. 10 million this time. The humans adapted their pattern and destroyed them in 30 minutes. Their ammunition must be running low. Talrix said hopefully. The sensor officer checked the data. Sir, the human ships are still at 95% ammunition capacity. They are barely using their reserves. Talrix could not believe it. The Concordant ships would have been empty after the first wave. The humans were fighting the largest battle he had ever seen, and they were barely trying. The Kreshtar seemed to realize their mistake. The entire swarm surged forward at once. Over 50 million bioships rushed toward the human fleet in a massive wall of living weapons. They are going to be overwhelmed, someone shouted. Captain Vasquez smiled on the view screen. It was not a nice smile. Tactical, release the drones. The human ships opened their cargo bays. Thousands of small objects flew out. At first, Talrix thought they were missiles. Then they started moving independently. Drones. Millions of small combat drones. Each one armed with explosives and smart targeting systems. The drones flew into the Kreshtar swarm like a school of metal piranhas. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were perfectly calculated. Each drone destroyed dozens of bioships before detonating. The space between the human fleet and the swarm became a graveyard of burning wreckage. When the chaos cleared, the Kreshtar swarm had lost half its numbers, and the human fleet had not taken a single hit. Talrix heard Captain Vasquez's voice again. Kreshtar Overmind, we know you can hear us. This is your only warning. Leave this system now or we will erase you completely. There was silence. Then for the first time in recorded history, the Kreshtar swarm began to pull back. Not retreat, not regroup. They were leaving. They are running, the sensor officer whispered in disbelief. The Kreshtar are running away. Talrix sat down heavily in his chair. The humans had won. They had defeated the unstoppable Kreshtar without losing a single ship. And they had done it in under 3 hours. Captain Vasquez appeared on the screen again. Envoy Talrix, the immediate threat has passed. However, the Kreshtar may return with reinforcements. We are landing ground forces on Varath 7 to establish a defensive perimeter. Please continue evacuating civilians. Captain, Talrix said slowly. How did you do that? Vasquez looked tired for the first time. Envoy, we are from Earth. We have been fighting and surviving for millions of years. This is what we do. The screen went dark. Talrix looked at his crew. Everyone wore the same expression of shock and awe. They had asked the Deathworlders for help. The Deathworlders had answered, and the galaxy would never be the same. The celebration on the Concordant ships was short-lived. 20 hours after the space battle, the sensors detected something new. The Kreshtar had not given up. They had simply changed tactics. Sir, multiple contacts emerging from FTL, the sensor officer reported. The Kreshtar are back, but these readings are different. Talrix moved to the sensor station. His wings drooped with exhaustion, but he forced himself to stay alert. What do you mean, different? These ships are larger, heavier. They are landing craft. Captain Vasquez's face appeared on the view screen immediately. She looked serious now. Envoy, the Kreshtar Overmind has escalated. They are deploying ground forces. Millions of them. Talrix felt ice in his veins. Can your ship stop them from landing? We can destroy some, but not all. They are using the moon's gravity to shield their approach. Vasquez turned to someone off-screen. Deploy the ODSTs. All battalions. This is a full ground engagement. ODSTs? Talrix asked. Orbital drop shock troopers, Vasquez explained. Our ground forces. They will establish a defensive perimeter around the civilian shelters. She paused. Envoy, I am assigning a liaison to your ship. She will help coordinate our efforts. Her transport is on the way. Before Talrix could respond, the transmission ended. He watched through the view screen as human landing craft launched from the warships. But they were not ordinary transports. They were drop pods, small armored capsules that fell toward the moon like meteorites. Sir, a human shuttle is requesting permission to dock, the communications officer announced. Granted, Talrix said. 10 minutes later, Talrix stood in the docking bay as the shuttle door opened. A human woman stepped out wearing combat armor that looked heavy and brutal. She was tall with blonde hair tied back and sharp blue eyes. She carried a large rifle that seemed designed to kill things much bigger than herself. Envoy Talrix, she asked. Her voice was strong and confident. I am Lieutenant Sarah Chen, UEDC Marine Corps. Captain Vasquez assigned me as your liaison. Talrix bowed. Welcome aboard, Lieutenant. I must ask, are you going to fight wearing that armor? Chen looked down at herself. This is light reconnaissance gear. The ODSTs are wearing the heavy stuff. She smiled at Talrix's shocked expression. Don't worry, we know what we're doing. Lieutenant, the Kreshtar are sending millions of warriors. I have read the report. Each one is 2 meters tall, armored, and has claws that can cut through steel. We've read the reports too. Chen replied calmly. That's why we brought the heavy weapons. Talrix led Chen to the bridge. Through the view screen, they could see the surface of Vareth 7. The drop pods were landing now, creating small explosions across the gray landscape. Human soldiers were deploying in perfect formations around the civilian shelters. Then the Kreshtar landing craft arrived. Massive bioships crashed into the moon's surface, and from them poured an army of nightmares. The Kreshtar warriors were exactly as the reports described. Insectoid creatures with 6 legs, razor-sharp claws, and armored carapaces. They moved in perfect unison, guided by the Overmind. 3 million Kreshtar warriors on the surface, the sensor officer reported. More landing every minute. Talrix watched in horror as the black tide of Kreshtar surged toward the human positions. Lieutenant, you have only 10,000 soldiers down there. This is impossible. Chen checked a display on her wrist. Envoy, we are from a Class 12 death world. Impossible is what we do before breakfast. The Kreshtar reached the first human defensive line. Talrix expected to see the humans overwhelmed immediately. Instead, he saw something that made no sense. The humans were winning. The ODST soldiers fought like nothing Talrix had ever seen. They used the terrain perfectly, turning every rock and crater into a fortress. Their weapons fired explosive rounds that could kill dozens of Kreshtar at once. When the aliens got too close, the humans used grenades, flamethrowers, and melee weapons that crackled with energy. But it was more than just weapons. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked Talrix. They did not panic when surrounded. They did not break when wounded. When one soldier fell, another would drag them to safety while still firing. They worked together like a single organism, but unlike the Kreshtar hive mind, each human seemed to think independently. How can they survive in those conditions? Talrix asked, watching as human soldiers fought in areas where the moon's toxic atmosphere had leaked through damaged seals. Chen checked her display again. The atmospheric toxins? Yeah, they're pretty bad. But humans evolved breathing oxygen mixed with nitrogen. We can handle some pretty nasty air. Our filters and medical boosters take care of the rest. A new wave of Kreshtar attacked from the eastern flank. 500,000 warriors rushed a position held by only 300 humans. Talrix was certain he was about to witness a massacre. The humans deployed something new. Large armored vehicles rolled forward, and from them came a sound that made Talrix's antenna vibrate painfully. Sonic weapons. The Kreshtar warriors close to the vehicles simply fell apart, their carapaces shattered by the sound waves. Behind the sonic weapons, human soldiers advanced with flamethrowers. The Kreshtar tried to adapt, to overwhelm through numbers, but the humans had planned for this. They had studied the enemy. They knew the Kreshtar could not think individually, only as a collective. So the humans attacked the collective mind itself. Are they using psychological warfare? Talrix asked in amazement, as he watched human soldiers plant devices that emitted strange signals. Disruption fields. Chen explained. They mess with the Kreshtar's shared consciousness, makes it hard for the Overmind to coordinate. She grinned. We learned that trick from studying Earth insects. Ants, bees, termites. All hive mind species have weaknesses. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Kreshtar kept sending more warriors. The humans kept adapting and destroying them. Talrix watched as human engineers built fortifications under fire, as medics ran into danger to save wounded soldiers, as commanders made decisions in seconds that would take the Concordance Council hours to debate. Lieutenant, Talrix said quietly, your people fight like they have done this 1,000 times before. Chen's expression became serious. We have, Envoy. Maybe not against aliens, but against each other. Earth has known war for its entire history. Every human child learns about ancient battles, famous generals, and tactical strategies. It is part of who we are. That is terrifying. Yes, Chen agreed, but right now it is also saving 12,000 lives. A massive Kreshtar warrior, larger than the others, burst through a human defensive line. It was a command strain, tougher and smarter. It killed 3 soldiers before they could react. Talrix felt sick watching it. Then a single human soldier stepped forward. He was massive, wearing armor twice as thick as the others. He carried a weapon that looked like a miniature cannon. The Kreshtar command strain charged at him. The soldier did not run.
He did not call for help.
He simply planted his feet, aimed his weapon, and fired. The round hit the Kreshtar in the center of its body and exploded. The creature was torn apart. Who was that? Talrix asked. Chen smiled with pride. Sergeant Marcus Williams, champion boxer before he joined the military. Good man to have in a fight. As the sun began to set on Vareth 7, something changed. The Kreshtar stopped attacking. Their warriors stood still as if waiting for orders. Talrix watched the sensors with confusion. What are they doing? Chen checked her tactical display. Her expression hardened. The Overmind is adapting. It's learning from the battle. This is about to get worse. Talrix looked at the young lieutenant. Worse than this? Much worse, Chen replied. The Kreshtar now know we can be killed. They will change their tactics. The real battle is about to begin. On the surface of Vareth 7, the human soldiers checked their weapons and prepared their defenses. The Kreshtar warriors waited in silence, and somewhere in the dark, the Overmind planned its revenge. Talrix realized that calling the Deathworlders had not just brought salvation. It had brought war in its purest, most brutal form, and the galaxy was watching. The Kreshtar attacked at dawn with a strategy they had never used before. They split their forces into small groups and attacked from dozens of directions at once. The Overmind had learned from watching the humans. It was adapting. Talrix stood on the bridge of the peaceful dawn watching the battle with growing fear. Lieutenant Chen stood beside him, monitoring the tactical displays. Her expression was focused but not worried. They are trying to divide your forces, Talrix observed, as another group of Kreshtar warriors broke through a weakened section of the defensive line. Yes, they are, Chen agreed. The Overmind is smarter than we thought. It studied our tactics and is using them against us. Then how do you win? Chen looked at Talrix with a strange smile. We adapt faster. On the surface, Captain Vasquez had taken personal command of the ground forces. She stood in a command bunker surrounded by holographic displays showing every part of the battlefield. Her orders came quickly and precisely. 3rd Battalion, collapse back to Grid 7. Draw them into the mining tunnels. Engineering Corps, prepare charges in tunnel sections 4 through 9. Talrix listened with confusion. She is retreating? The Kreshtar will think they are winning. That's the idea, Chen said. We want them to think that. The Kreshtar poured into the mining tunnels, chasing the retreating human soldiers. Millions of warriors filled the underground passages, convinced they had the humans trapped. The Overmind pushed more forces into the tunnels, sensing victory. Captain Vasquez waited. She watched the displays as the Kreshtar numbers in the tunnels grew. 2 million, 3 million, 4 million warriors all packed into the confined spaces underground. Captain, they are almost at the civilian shelters, a tactical officer warned. Vasquez's expression did not change. Wait for it. 5 million Kreshtar were now in the tunnels. The human soldiers had fallen back to the final defensive positions. It looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Now, Vasquez said calmly, detonate. The engineers triggered the explosive charges. But these were not normal explosives. The humans had spent hours preparing something special. They had identified gas pockets in the mining tunnels. natural deposits of flammable materials. The explosives were just the spark. The entire tunnel system became an inferno. Fire raced through the passages, incinerating everything inside. The gas pockets exploded one after another, creating a chain reaction that collapsed thousands of meters of tunnels. 5 million Kreshtar warriors died in seconds, buried and burned. Talric stared at the display in shock. You planned this from the beginning. Since we first scanned the moon's geology, Chen confirmed. Captain Vasquez is a master of tactical planning. She saw the mining tunnels and knew exactly how to use them. But the battle was not over. The Kreshtar overmind, enraged by the losses, sent everything it had left. 10 million warriors charged the human positions in a massive wave. The ground itself seemed to shake under their advance. The human soldiers held their positions. They fired until their weapons overheated. They used every grenade, every missile, every bullet. But the Kreshtar kept coming. They are going to break through, Talric shouted. Captain Vasquez's voice came over the communication channel. All personnel, fall back to Alpha Protocol positions. Activate the final defense measures. The human soldiers retreated to positions around the civilian shelters. The Kreshtar surged forward, sensing victory. Then they hit the final defense line. The humans had buried thousands of automated weapons in the ground. Turrets, mines, and directed energy weapons all activated at once. The Kreshtar ran into a wall of fire so intense that even their armored bodies could not survive. But it was still not enough. The Kreshtar climbed over their own dead, using the bodies as shields. They were going to reach the shelters. Then something happened that Talrics would never forget. The human soldiers stopped retreating. Every single one of them planted their feet and refused to move another step. They stood between the Kreshtar and the civilians they had sworn to protect, and they fought. Talrics watched in awe as human soldiers with no ammunition left used their empty weapons as clubs. Soldiers with broken armor fought with combat knives. Engineers who had never trained for combat picked up rifles from fallen comrades and joined the line. Why are they not running? Talrics asked. They could evacuate. Save themselves. Chen's voice was filled with emotion. Because that's not who we are. Humans don't abandon those who need us. We stand and fight even when it is impossible, especially when it is impossible. On the surface, Sergeant Marcus Williams stood at the front line. His armor was cracked, his weapon destroyed. A group of Kreshtar warriors charged directly at him. He could have fallen back, but behind him were the shelters filled with civilians. Williams pulled out his combat knife and roared a challenge. You want them? You go through me first. The Kreshtar attacked. Williams fought with pure human fury. He used the knife, his fists, even his armored helmet as a weapon. He was one man against 100 aliens. He should have died in seconds, but other humans joined him. A medic with a pistol. An engineer with a welding torch. A communications officer with a piece of broken metal. They formed a wall of human bodies, and that wall did not break. Captain Vasquez watched from the command bunker. She had one card left to play. Lieutenant Chen, tell the Concordance to move their ships back. 1,000 kilometers, Chen relayed the order. Talrics gave the command, though he did not understand why. The Concordance fleet pulled back from the moon. All human personnel take cover in the hardened bunkers. Now, Vasquez ordered. The soldiers on the surface ran for the reinforced bunkers near the civilian shelters. They dragged wounded comrades with them. Within 2 minutes, every human was under cover. Vasquez looked at her tactical officer. Fire the orbital strike package. In space, the UEDC Indomitable turned its main weapons toward the moon's surface. Every other human warship did the same. They had been holding these weapons in reserve, waiting for this moment. Firing, the weapons officer reported. Beams of pure energy lanced down from orbit. They struck the areas where the Kreshtar forces were concentrated. The power was enormous, enough to crack the moon's crust. The entire surface where the Kreshtar stood was simply erased. When the light faded, there were no Kreshtar left on Verath 7. The Overmind had thrown everything at the humans, and the humans had destroyed it all. Talrics could not speak. The Concordance had rules about weapons of such power. They were considered too dangerous, too brutal. But the humans had used them without hesitation to protect the civilians. Chen saw Talrics's expression. I know what you're thinking, Envoy. Those weapons are terrible. But we did not use them first. We used them as a last resort to save lives. You won, Talric said quietly. Against impossible odds, you won. We did what needed to be done, Chen replied. That is the Death World doctrine. We survive, we adapt, we protect those who cannot protect themselves, and we never ever give up. On the surface, the human soldiers emerged from the bunkers. They were battered, exhausted, and many were wounded, but they had held the line. Not a single civilian had been harmed. Captain Vasquez's voice came over the channel. All units secure the perimeter. Medical teams begin treatment of the wounded. This battle is over. Talrix looked at the tactical displays. The Kreshtar swarm was retreating from the system. For the first time in their existence, they had been completely defeated. They had learned what happened when they attacked under human protection. Lieutenant, Talrix said, your people are terrifying. Chen nodded slowly. Yes, we are. But we are also loyal, protective, and we honor our commitments. You called for help and we came. We will always come. Talrix understood now. The humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also the most reliable allies the galaxy had ever known. Once they gave their word, they kept it. No matter the cost, the Battle of Verath 7 was over, but its impact would echo across the stars for generations. Someone had to, Vasquez replied. If we are going to work together, it has to be as equals. Fear is not a foundation for friendship. They walked back into the main shelter. The human soldiers were helping the civilians pack. Talrix watched as Sergeant Williams lifted a small alien child onto his shoulders, making the child laugh. The same soldier who had fought with impossible courage was now being gentle and kind. Captain, Talrix said, I must write a report for the Council. About everything that happened here. About the Death World doctrine and what it means. What will you tell them? Vasquez asked. Talrix thought for a moment. The truth. That humanity is terrifying. That your capacity for violence is beyond anything we imagined. But also that your capacity for sacrifice, for protection, for keeping your word is equally extraordinary. You are dangerous, but you are also our greatest hope. Vasquez smiled. That is fair. 1 week later, Talrix stood before the full Galactic Concordance Council. His report had been distributed to every member. The chamber was quiet as he prepared to speak. Honored Council, Talrix began. I have titled my report The Death World Doctrine, Why Humanity Cannot Be Conquered. I wish to share my conclusions. He activated a holographic display showing images from the battle. The council watched in silence. Humanity comes from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. They evolved not just to survive, but to thrive in chaos. Every challenge made them stronger. Every threat taught them a new way to fight. They became the ultimate survivors. Talrix changed the display to show human soldiers protecting civilians. But survival alone does not explain what I witnessed. Humans could have evacuated and saved themselves. Instead, they stayed and fought. They chose to protect strangers even at the cost of their own lives. This is not just survival instinct. This is something more. He looked at the council members directly. The Death World doctrine is simple. Humans are unstoppable not because they cannot be killed. They are unstoppable because they refuse to stop. When they give their word, they keep it. When they stand their ground, they do not retreat. When they fight with everything they have. Talrix paused, letting his words sink in. The Kreshtar learned this lesson. They came with millions of warriors, confident in their numbers. They left in fear, having lost everything. Because they met a species that refused to surrender. A species that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. A species that simply will not quit. He deactivated the display. I witnessed something on Verath 7 that changed my understanding of the universe. I saw that peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. True peace is having the power to destroy, but choosing to protect instead. Humanity has this power, and they have chosen to use it for us. The council chamber was absolutely silent. My conclusion is this, Talrix said. We asked the Deathworlders for help and they came. They bled for us. They died for us. They won for us. And in doing so, they showed us what we had forgotten. That sometimes to preserve civilization, we must be willing to fight for it. Talrix held up a data device. This report will be distributed across the concordance. Every species will read it. Every government will study it. And everyone will understand the truth. Humanity is not our enemy. They are our shield. And that is both terrifying and comforting in equal measure. High Chancellor Vekros stood. Thank you, Envoy Talrix. Your report will indeed be shared with all member species. He looked around the chamber. Let it be known that from this day forward, Earth is a full member of the Galactic Concordance. The humans are our allies, our protectors, and our friends. The council members stood in a gesture of respect. It was the highest honor the Concordance could give. Later, Talrix received a message from Captain Vasquez. It was simple and direct. Thank you for understanding us, Envoy. Humanity looks forward to building a better galaxy together. And if any other threats emerge, we will be ready. Because that is what Deathworlders do. Captain Elena Vasquez, UEDC. Talrix looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Crescitar were spreading a new message. A warning to every hostile species in the galaxy. Do not attack the Concordance. Do not threaten their worlds. Because if you do, the Deathworlders will come. And the Deathworlders never stop. The SOS that called the unstoppable Deathworlders had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. And Talrix believed that was a good thing. Because now, when darkness threatened, they had humanity standing watch, and nothing in the universe could stand against a species that refused to quit. The report was complete. The message was clear. The stars had been warned. Humanity had arrived.